So today we're going to dig into a really simple question that has a surprisingly deep answer. It's a thought experiment, really, one that cuts through all the noise of our daily lives to show us something kind of essential about our connections. Let's get right into it. Here it is. If you turned your phone off and didn't contact anybody for a week, who would be looking for you? Just let that sink in for a second. It's a pretty powerful thought, isn't it? In a world where we're basically always connected, who would be the first one to actually notice the silence? Okay, so let's really unpack this. Look, the goal here is not to give you a bunch of anxiety or make you search for some right answer. Nope. Instead, we're just going to use this question as a sort of lens, a way to look at our relationships and what they really mean in our day-to-day lives. And it really forces us to think about the difference between being seen and being missed. I mean, there's a huge difference between a friend noticing you haven't posted on Instagram lately and that same friend getting genuinely worried because they haven't heard from you. This is all about exploring that deeper, more tangible connection. To really dig into this idea, we gotta set the scene. So let's just establish some clear ground rules for what going off the grid actually means for this little experiment. All right, here are the rules. First, your phone isn't just on silent, it is completely off. Dark screen, no buzzing, nothing. Second, no contact means zero contact. No sneaking onto social media, no checking emails, no sending texts. You leave no digital footprint at all. And finally, this goes on for 1 full week. 7 whole days of total silence. Now, I want you to really picture this. It's just a normal day, maybe a Tuesday, nothing special's happening. You get home, you put your phone down, and then just nothing. You've completely vanished from the grid. Who is the very first person to feel that you're gone? And this is where it gets really interesting because the answer probably depends on who we're talking about, right? We all have these different circles of connection in our lives, from our absolute inner circle to people we just know casually. You can kind of think of our connections in layers, like you see here. Your inner circle, your partner, your immediate family, they might expect to hear from you every day. Your close friends, they'd probably notice within a day or two. But then you've got work colleagues or your online friends, and the rhythm of communication there is totally different. The first person who notices really depends on which of these circles has the tightest loop with you. So think about the specific routines in your life. Is there a good morning text that would suddenly go unanswered? A weekly call to your parents that gets missed? A meeting your boss expects you at? It's the breaking of those little consistent rituals that usually sounds the first alarm. Okay, so someone notices you're quiet. But let's be real, there is a massive difference between just noticing and getting genuinely worried. So let's try to map out how that little flicker of curiosity could escalate into real concern over those 7 days. And this timeline here shows how that could play out. It starts small, right? Day 1, just an unread message. That's weird. But by day 3, that person might be texting a mutual friend. And by the end of the week, that small, private has spread. And now someone decides they need to physically check on you. And that brings us to the real question. What is that tipping point? How long does your silence have to last before people stop assuming you're just busy or taking a break and start thinking something might actually be wrong? When does, they just need some space, become, we need to find them? Okay, now this is probably the most important part of this whole thing. If this question is making you feel a little anxious, it's so important that we reframe it. This is not a test of your popularity. It is not a scorecard of your self-worth. The real power of this question is as a tool for reflection. And this slide lays it out perfectly. You've got 2 paths here. If you see this as a test on the left, it just leads to anxiety, right? You start focusing on the number of people and you feel like you don't measure up. But if you see it as a tool over on the right, the focus shifts completely. It becomes about gratitude for the connections you already have, and it makes you want to nurture them. It's all about quality, not quantity. Because in the end, it really doesn't matter if the list of people who would notice is long or short. That number isn't the point. If you can think of just one person, one single person who would go from worrying to actively looking for you, then you have something incredibly precious. That one connection is the entire point. So the goal here isn't to be missed by more and more people. It's to stop for a second and appreciate the people who would notice you're gone. This is really just an exercise in gratitude. It's a moment to recognize the people who are so woven into the fabric of your life that your absence would actually leave a hole. So let's leave you with this final thought. We've spent this time thinking about who would look for you. Now flip it around. Whose silence would you notice? Who is the person you would go looking for? Because being that person for someone else, well, that's where the real meaning is.